Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Press Club Brussels. We're going to be discussing today a very, very interesting particular case, which fits into the narrative that we're having a lot here professionally as journalists on the subject of fake news and the way in which fake news can be disseminated. We're going to be asking the question or addressing how to destroy a company using social media. We're looking at the example of a young lady in Romania, Ioana Marinescu, a pharmacist, entrepreneur, and the founder in 2016 of PlushBio Cosmetics, a company which has received a great deal of investment from the founder, a company with a turnover in 2019 of 3 million euros, so a significant cosmetics company. However, a problem seems to have occurred when possibly some business rivals, founded a Facebook group and indeed an Instagram page under the name of Nicoletta Dragni, somebody who is described as an influencer. We're all aware that on social media, we have influencers, people who are paid significant sums of money to promote certain products, or it's alleged here to actually denigrate somebody else's products or services. This is a group which has been formed around 9 young ladies, allegedly former clients of the company, who had certain troubles with this this product. This is as is alleged. And then we're seeing that influencers who had promoted these products suddenly pulled away. Some of them, it's alleged, have actually been threatened. I understand that the story has been presented to Romanian press, but that journalists who have expressed an interest in the story have suddenly backed off. We can only speculate as to why that might be the case. All of the products produced by the company are absolutely in line with current Romanian legislation. And apart from these attacks, there have been, as we understand, no further problems. What I'd like to do, because I'm not an expert on cosmetics, I have to say, is to pass over to our friend in Romania, Cinziana Caterina, who is a spokesperson for Plush Bio. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. As you mentioned some very important facts about what happened to Plush Bio. And I want to give a brief overview of the situation. So it all started in April 2020, when a person who has never used the products of the brand she accuses becomes the so-called savior, if you will, for a few unsatisfied clients who use the products. Indeed, that is true. So some used them in 2020, others in 2019. And very important, most of them used them in 2018. So we're talking about 2-year difference here. And as you were mentioning, the way the fake news and this hate speech was promoted was using the Instagram page of the person, like the boss of the group, if you will, and the Facebook group, whose name back then was something like Plush Bio Destroyed My Face. And then, so when we were looking at these two facts, there were two main questions that from our perspective arise in the mind of any good faith external observer. So we have the why and the what from our perspective. And it's very important because we were just wondering, why does someone complain for something they think is wrong over 2 years after they were the brand's client? So why not, air their grievances earlier, in 2017, in 2018, in 2019? So we were wondering, are they only some clients who are not happy with the brand, which is the case for every brand? Not every brand has 100% people who like the brand, which is normal. Or are they caught in a trap of misinformation and fake news that was artificially created? But the most important thing for us was what interest has the person that has never used the products to defame, humiliate, and threaten a small business owner, because it's still a small, medium business owner. We're not talking about a corporation. What drives the person to promote so much anger and hate, and what makes this person wake up and literally every day for 2 months to just spread hate and anger and defamation and all of this. Is it like a full-time job of the person, or like what's the problem? So for us, these were the two main questions, the what and the why. And then when we're looking at how things have been done, it's a lot of them. So we're talking about threats that were done to the founder, to the employees, to the influencers that were using our products. And we even had a case at some point when the influencer was threatened for her child's life. Like, people would message her on Instagram and would tell them, I wish your kid dies, and just that kind of anger and hate. And of course, something very important is that this Facebook group was very well monitored and moderated. So the people who were posting in the group, their feedback, their experience with the brand and anything like that, everything would be deleted. So anyone who didn't have a bad thing to say was denigrated, humiliated. And then from Facebook, they would look for the person's username, search it on Instagram. So we have both of them, Instagram and Facebook. And then on Instagram, they would message the clients, and they would, invite the people in the group, tell them, they even sent some photos with the founder's daughter, and they were commenting about the daughter's appearance, like physical appearance. So it was very, very violent in a way. And these fake accounts, well, we call them fake accounts because there was no, real person behind the accounts. We identified back then about 30 accounts on Instagram. And just overall, the communication was intimidating and harassing. And some of the accounts that were used back then on Instagram don't exist anymore today. So when we try to search for the username on Instagram, nothing shows up. It's like it disappeared in a way. And something also very important was the fact that, so, as you were mentioning at the beginning, the brand and like how quickly Ioana managed to raise this brand from scratch, from nothing. I just want this to be very clear. So it all started with 700 euros in 2016, if I'm not wrong. So everything was, just like booming. The products were very, very well appreciated. Also, more than 70% of the clients Plush Bio had by April 2020 ordered at least 3 times. So we're talking about a very high rate of customer retention. Basically, threatening messages were on the Facebook group. They were putting photos with the founder, photos with the daughter of the founder, photos with the car of the founder, photo with cars with the employee's car. And so that was online. But then when these things can also escalate in a way in real life, that's what scares you in a way. It can become dangerous. So there are 2 cases that I want to mention. One that just shows how big the defamation got to be. So the first one was when Ioana went to a beauty salon for her appointment, and the lady there just didn't allow her to enter for her appointment and just told her, no, we don't want to do your hair today because we just don't want to do that. And okay, you can say, well, this can happen. But then one time she was in a gas stop, and I think someone was just following her with a car. And then when she was in the gas stop, that person started to hit the car, like literally hit the car. So when you see read everything in online and just see how bad and like the level of hate and in a way, it's also that's why I was saying the why is very important, because you ask yourself, like, don't you have anything else better to do than just to like threat, intimidate, publicly humiliate a person and a brand? Like, that was very curious for us. And just something also very interesting about a Facebook group that I think it's worth mentioning is the fact that there were 2 photos that were put on the group at some point with a before and after. So the before looked very well, like the face was very clean and perfect. And then the after looked very bad. And then from the research we did, we found on a website, the photos inversed. So the before was the after and the after was the before. So this is clearly like fake news and disinformation. And also the fact that you don't allow both opinions to be there. So it's only like, and it's very easy because everything can be deleted. You can just enter the group. You don't know, you just fall in a trap of being misinformed and of trusting everything that you read there. And it's also, as you very well might know better than me, these days everyone only reads the headlines. So there is no like, you don't dig into things to see, well, is this true or not? Or like, what is true out of this? What is not? Like, ask yourself some questions and have some discernment in a way. And also something very important I want to mention. So we had the Facebook group phase, which, as I was saying, took about like 2 months maximum. And if I'm not wrong, end of April or end of May, there is a saying, the right man in the right place at the right time. And I think that really was the case back then, the right person at the right time, in the perfect overnight built momentum. I think that happened. So just to give you a bit of context, because it's also important for the area. So we're talking about Romania here. And few years previous to 2020, there were some cases with fake doctors. So the population had been exposed to this sort of like, oh, this is very bad sort of thing. Especially that some of them were even, if I'm not wrong, were even practicing in public hospitals. So people were already, not trusting that much the healthcare system, the pharmaceutical industry. So it was all very, very blurry there. So the Facebook group was not enough to literally destroy this brand. So social media did the worst part for it, but they also went on TV. So the TV show started with a completely different topic, which was the weight loss pills, which slightly touches on the pharmaceutical industry. And it was very weird because probably 90% of the ads promoted by the TV channel are meds and supplements. It's only about the pharmaceutical industry. So that was very weird. Basically we were not called in the first place. We found out from Instagram, from the person who was denigrating the brand and doing all of the things on Facebook and on Instagram. And basically no one, we were all witnessing a televised sham trial with completely one-sided proceedings. And after the TV show, the intensity of the entire systematic campaign of hate kind of like dropped somewhat, but the harm was already done. Clients were already, some of them were threatened, others were just fearing, like if you wake up one day and you find a message on Instagram, and then you are invited to enter a group where you see like destroyed faces, before and afters that are inversed and all of that, you, of course, you won't have like the faith or whatever, however you want to call it. So it was very hard, and it was very hard to see how this can escalate in real life as well. So I think that moment at the gas stop really was like if you want, like the boom moment in a way, because everything was, okay, this is online. It's anyways like this, you are destroying the brand. But then at some point you start fearing for your life. Yeah, and then not to mention the night calls from private numbers at night, and it was chaos, really. And very important to mention, because everything was done on Facebook and Instagram. So the legal team at that time was sending official documents and papers. It was not only about the brand, as I said, it was also about the persons. Like you are putting, okay, like her daughter was, I think, 20 back then, but like you are putting, someone's photos on a Facebook group where everyone just starts commenting and like hating and just being, oh, like she's this, she's that, and like the founder is this, is that, the employees like sending photos of the cars, like all of that really really scared us in a way, I would say, and also made us realize how should I, like, how, you know, how things can get from just like from something online that you think it's nothing bad can happen from that, or like sometimes maybe we don't realize, but it's very serious. And Facebook didn't reply to any of this. I don't know, I'm just wondering, where were the fact checkers back then? You know, there was official documentation. There were like, I don't know, like a lot of, you know, documents sent to Facebook, and no one ever replied. That was very sad. That was very sad, I have to say.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just looking at the moment at one of these, a number of Facebook pages and Instagram accounts were flagged up to me here in association with this issue. And I'm looking at one now. And yes, there is a video here which is attacking Plush Bio. And this is very, very interesting because, you know, I know how hard it is on social media to build up a following. And I see somebody here who has only ever made 30 posts, but has 54,000 followers. This is a commercial exercise. I couldn't even say, is the lady in the photographs really the person behind this? I suspect not. That's my personal feeling, but this is clearly a commercial operation to attack one particular company, and I would say probably a competitor. We have with us Chris White in the UK at the moment. Chris, you and I have known each other for the best part of 20 years. You are probably one of the most experienced journalists, I have to say, not just in the UK, but in the EU. You were a press officer for the Conservatives in the European Parliament. You've worked for some of the biggest names in British media. Over the years, we've talked a lot about how media has changed in, you know, about advertising, about how revenue is made. But one of the things we've discussed endlessly is this problem of fake news. What we're seeing now is not just fake stories being planted. We're seeing abuse of social media. There's a lot of control over what I do, what you've done in the past. If we have our own platforms, we are proper media platforms. But on social media, you can get away with anything, can't you? It's a free-for-all. Chris, I think you need to put your microphone on.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's better. Yep.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, Gary, I listened to that account with great interest, because I know a lot of people who have given up social media because when they went on to Facebook and others, they were attacked. And I know of people whose businesses almost went under because they were attacked and criticized. It's a real big problem, but that aspect of it really isn't all that new. There was a time when if you had a local shop and people didn't like you, they'd go down to the local pub and they would criticize you and say things were wrong, and you would lose some business, not all your business, because it was a limited little group of people in a pub. Now, social media has exaggerated that. And it's much more important than just the, in a way, quite natural instinct to compete with people, to do them down, and to, you know, to to basically do them damage. But more importantly, both social order, which this is, and democracy are under threat from fake news. That is a well-proven fact. I'm not going to give precise examples of anything that I know about, because there's another factor, and that's the law and the courts and lawyers. If I were to name somebody or an organization in this context, I would probably end up in a costly legal battle. And that is another huge problem. Now, I'm an old-fashioned reporter, and I've always worked by the clear standards of the media as it was. I will give something away here because I know I only look 29, but I'm going back to the 1960s and 70s. False news was a problem then because stories came to us from gossip. And we had to have two reliable independent sources before we wrote and published anything. So you couldn't just go to a pub, hear a story, and then write it, which is what's happening today. Now, it's largely due to social media, but it's also due to commercialization of established media outlets. Now, democracy is founded on trust, and relatively recent surveys show that less than 30% of people now trust the established media. Fake news spreads faster than the news in the established media. Now, according to surveys, true or false, I cannot say, but some 3 billion people use social media, and it's instant. Now, I've heard the remark about taking stuff down, that the platforms, if you complain, will take stuff down. But it's already spread to tens of thousands of people before it's taken down. Now, there is one thing, I said I won't give an example, but if you look at the 2016 elections in the United States, it's fairly well established that Donald Trump was helped largely by Russian sources to win that election. And Hillary Clinton and her chief of staff were accused of running a child sex ring from a pizzeria, which helped bring her down. And what it is also is in parallel with fake news, is the deterioration of established news outlets and news reporting. What can we do? Now, I listened to that lady speaking from Romania, and I feel very sympathetic, but we need action by platforms, by regulators, and also a change of attitude by lawyers so that we can get something done. This needs to be regulated. There's a thing called slander. If you go to a pub and say, or a cafe, and start making remarks about people, there was a time when you would find yourself in court for slandering them. But it seems to me that the legal system has completely collapsed everywhere. It might well be that the journalists that were mentioned at the beginning of this are under some sort of financial influence. I don't know. I said it might be. But also, there's the legal threat. Somebody will say, if you get involved in that, we'll sue you. And that is a possibility. So all I can say is we're at a crisis of democracy. And that is the real issue that the legislators need to address, and they're not doing it effectively. Over to you.
Do you think it might be the case that it's too easy to set up social media accounts? It's very easy to do a Facebook page or a Twitter account or whatever. But if you want to go, for example, to PayPal, which is, I think, itself owned by a social media company, you've got to provide identification. You've got to send off your passport. They need to know who you are. And do you not feel that should be the case with social media, so that if there are problems, then there's some recourse? We know who has actually caused these problems. I'd be fascinated to know who is the lady or who is the person or the company, the consultancy, whatever, behind this Instagram account that I'm looking at. Because this, to me, this is just screaming out that this is not real. And this is not what social media was meant to be, is it?
Are you talking to me? Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just ask it. Should it be
yes,
a requirement
sorry, Gary,
of some sort of legal identity or something?
Yeah. Well, the fact is that there was a time, and it still is actually, but it doesn't seem to be effective. But there was a time, if you wrote something that was wrongly libelous of somebody, you would end up in court. And old-fashioned journalism, and indeed journalism today, has to take that into account. But social media people, as you rightly say, we don't know who they are. If somebody tries to find out who they are, they probably don't exist. They've got a false account. Or they're in Russia, or they're in Libya, or whatever, I'm just making the names up, then the fact is there is no legal system for controlling it. You cannot walk in the UK, I'm talking UK law because I know it, but I think Belgians, you cannot walk into a bar and start slandering somebody with false allegations and get away with it because somebody will say, 2 people heard you say that, and you'll end up in court. You cannot bring these people to court. It's impossible because you never can find out who they are. Over to you.
Excuse me, I just wanted to mention one more thing. So when the things were, chilling out a bit, I think that was in February 2021, the name of the group was changed to Stop Bullying Romania. And we found that the most cynical thing, like that was just, for 2-3 months, everyone was just posting. Hate speech was at the pride of place. It was so much hate and anger. You couldn't help but really either start crying because of like so much hate and anger that was upon you, or just be like, I cannot believe if these things exist. Like, are we living in 2020? Like, what's going on? And also very important, that was happening in lockdown, so everyone was online. It was booming back then. So the name of the group now is Stop Bullying Romania or something like this. After this Plush Bio destroyed my face, and all of the messages, threats, and everything. Now it's Stop Bullying Romania. That was very even funny in a way, if you want.
Well, can I just ask everyone to reflect on something? If you go into your local shopping center or a cafe or some social center, and you overhear somebody talking, very often you'll hear a little group of people really rubbishing somebody, really saying nasty things about them. There is a lot of hatred in what I call gossip. And maybe be called gossip media in some way, financial and other interests, political interests. People naturally talk badly about people they don't like, but it should never get into print. Now, print, I'm using as a term for electronic services as well. It should never get into print. We know it goes on, it's always gone on, but what's now happening is that the social animosities that people have are getting into print. And the law should stop it. They should know that if they put something derogatory about someone on social media, they will end up in court and having to pay a penalty. And that is how it used to work, and that's how it should work again. Now, I'm afraid I'm very critical of politicians in particular, but not only politicians, because they are not getting to grips with something which is ultimately a threat to our democracy, if you carry it through. Over to you.
Chris, many thanks for that. I just want to say, I always like to bask in reflected glory, and I just want to point out that this man interviewed the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Sammy Davis Jr., amongst many others. And if you ever get a chance to sit and have a lunch with Chris, you will hear stories that you will remember for the rest of your life. And I was absolutely delighted once to be walking through London with him when we were lost outside the House of Commons, a place we should know. And he just suddenly bumped into Boris Johnson, who just sort of stopped and have a chat with his old mate, Chris White. So it's great to have you here, Chris. We miss you here in Brussels, by the way.
Okay, well, very briefly, I'll tell you something. I was once sent on a story, very nice, it would have been the late 60s, and I was sent on a story about a girl who had been murdered. And I went to a small town, and I was rather young, and all the other journalists sort of gave me the cold shoulder. And a man was the chief suspect by the police and was about to be charged with her murder because he'd been in a pub with her at, I'm making this up now because I can't remember all the details so long ago, at 6 o'clock. Because I'd been given the cold shoulder, I went to another pub and I spoke to some people, to the landlord or the man behind the bar, and they said, oh, they were in here at 6:15. I'm making the times up just to be brief. So then I went to another pub and I found out that they'd been in there at 7:30. And then I went to another pub and they said, oh, they came in here, but he left and she went off with someone else. So I wrote the story that this man couldn't possibly be the killer because he was in a different pub. I found out which pub he'd gone to. And when the first editions came out, all of a sudden I was no longer cold shoulder. Everybody wanted to know how I got the information. And I said, well, I just went round all the pubs and asked questions. Now, that is what I call doing proper reporting. Do you see what I mean? Am I making my point clearly? You have to make proper research, do proper research to get a story in the, or had to in those days, to get a story in the paper. And you had to be able to have reliable people to quote. Nowadays, it's what I call pub gossip appearing everywhere.
Chris, thank you very much. I'm just going to bring Andy Vermouth into the conversation. Andy is a fellow journalist, does a lot of work with EU Today, also a fellow member of the Press Club. And Andy, you've looked at this story, and I know that you asked if you could maybe give your thoughts.
Yes, as an online reputation manager also, sometimes the first people who give a reaction, they set the tone. So the big problem that we have with social media, everybody can be on social media. Everybody can use a VPN account and everybody can stop a business. Everybody has this right to do this. But the big problem with this, that is people are not always aware when it happens. And before people know that it's there, it's already 2 weeks further. And in normal public relations, you should respond if you have bad critics in the first 24 hours, because in the first 24 hours, the story is not there already. So you have to respond in the first 24 hours. You need a sort of rapid response mechanism to attack these lies, this fake news. And so for a business, and this story is really, really, really sad, it's really crazy to live with this. And therefore, I think we have the Irish Data Authority that you can put a complaint when something happens like this, but they are not responding not quick enough. So really need some legislation in which these social media companies respond much, much quicker. I know a case of a girl in the United States, Kerry Harvey. Somebody made a fake account about her, that she was a prostitute. Now she cannot go outside anymore. It has real troubles in her real life. And a lot of things happen and people cannot do something about it. So I think the best idea, and it's a very good idea, that we need to have a sort of digital identity cards who is linked to the social media accounts so that people can be sued for what they are doing. Because this is, this business has so much damage that you can never repair this. So these people should take to responsible for their deeds. So in the Belgian legislation, we have 1382. If you damage a business, you should pay for the damage. We need this also in online media. We need this in social media accounts. It's very easy to damage, and they live on the online reputation. Without their reputation, they cannot sell products. So I think we should tackle this, and we should use this story for social media to have this European regulation on the European level to tackle this kind of disinformation, because yes, it ruined her business, but it's also ruined her life. If I hear that she was even attacked when she was going to take gasoline, if you see, it can go very, very, very far. And so we have a big problem. We have also a lot of mental ill people who are on social media. And the first reaction of these people follow the first reaction. It's a group thing. So we should work on this and tackle this. So I think it's a very good idea to have this linked to a sort of digital identity. And I think it's a lot of work for legislator to work on this, not only on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but we have still other places, WordPress sites who are made to, or blogs who are made to or other competitors. Most of the time, these are competitors. Most of the time, these are jealous people. They don't want to have your business booming. And that's one of the things that we should work on, a sort of digital fake news protection acts from the European Union. So I agree, and I'm very sorry for what happened with your business. So I'm very sorry.
Thank you very much for your time.
A digital identity card. This is very interesting. Look, instinctively, I would be against, more controls over people. I don't instinctively like the idea of ID cards, to be honest. Being English, I don't carry a passport or an ID card or anything, because to me, it would be an infringement of my civil liberties. But the reality is that the world in which we live in now is a very different place. And as post-pandemic, more people will be working online, they'll be spending more time online. And so I think you're absolutely correct. As we have a driving license, so maybe there should be some way of legally identifying the people who are responsible for social media accounts. Absolutely.
Gary, can I just make a very brief interjection? I totally agree with everything that's just been said, but I think one of the fundamentals, and I'm not a lawyer, but I think it might even be possible, but one of the fundamentals that, adding to what has just been said, is that the platforms should be liable for damages for slander and libel. If you can't identify who wrote it, then the platform should pay you. That's one simplistic thing. Then they would be encouraged to stop people before they put the stuff up. And don't forget, what has happened is, and this is me talking as an old-fashioned journalist, everything I ever wrote when I was working for national newspapers was examined by a lawyer before it was published. Everything. You wrote a story, and the lawyer would come back to you and say, how sure are you of these facts? And you would have to explain who you spoke to and satisfy him that you'd got the facts right. Now, that's not happening with social media. It's pub gossip. So the answer is to say to the platforms, if somebody slanders somebody or libels them or says something untrue about them, you will be liable for the damages. Thank you.
I would say, okay, so my company, we have, obviously it's a media company, a large number of social media identities on various platforms. It's a very important part of promoting the business. And I do get feedback, I have to say, from both Facebook and Twitter. I get feedback if somebody has maybe posted a response to something online, they'll say, we deleted this because he said something or whatever. So they are monitoring, there's no question, but they're not going far enough. They're not holding people accountable. I think that it's not enough to maybe suspend an account. If somebody does slander or libel somebody, if somebody causes financial damage, as in the case that we're looking at now, then that person needs to be held responsible. Fake headlines, they can be fun. We're English journalists. We all know Freddie Starr ate my hamster, one of the greatest headlines ever written. careers were built on that one headline. Unfortunately, the person who wrote it then subsequently died in jail, but there we go. But it's not fun when somebody's livelihood is ruined, as is the case at the moment. I see Radu, I see online. Would you have anything to say on this? Something you'd like to add? Because I know it's an issue you know well.
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. A very interesting topic, and for sure, PlushBio scenario should be studied even in schools on how to destroy a company using social media. It's very interesting that who did this knew exactly how people work. We have this instinct to have an enemy. We need an enemy. We see this in politics pretty often when someone shows us and say, "Look, this is the enemy of the state. You should vote for me because this is your enemy." We also see it in football when supporters of two football teams fight before or after the game, and we are asking, "Okay, what is the problem here?" Because it's a simple football game. No, it is not. It's an instinct we have as people. The problem is they used this instinct here. So they show that Ioana Marinescu and PlushBio is an enemy. Ioana, it was the enemy. We should get her out of business. We should do everything we can in order to destroy her company. So they used it on social media because, as you already said it, and it's an amazing observation, there anyone can say anything. And also the problem with social media is that a story can stay there for 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, or even more, because if in traditional media the stories are keep changing one after another, in social media, if you have a group like this one, a story can stay there for so long. So it was a very good strategy. From a crisis management consultant, I can say it was a very good strategy. It was someone did it in a very, very good way, but for sure we need some protections from social media, because for sure social media can really destroy a company and someone's life. Thank you very much.
On another note of what Radu was saying is the fact that you see you were talking about the financial damages, and everyone here was talking about like how to destroy the business. But I want to mention one very important thing, which I think might be overlooked sometimes. So, there are the damages that you can feel. You look at your bank account, and by the way, 2 of the banks we were working with just wanted to break the contract with us because of the whole hate and anger that was around us, and they just said, "We don't want you as clients anymore." And 2 months before, they would just open all the doors, and everything was fine and perfect. But very important is the fact that back then in April 2020 there were 37 employees. Okay, so I think this is the damage that you don't see now. It's 9. So I think this is the damage that you don't see. People losing their jobs because, of course, you don't have money to pay them anymore, because a business doesn't mean that the owner gets rich. That really isn't the case. But people don't know. Maybe someone should tell them. I don't know. It's not only about that person and like waking up and putting like all the efforts into running the business. It's also your employees who, should have money in order to feed their kids at home at night. So I think this is maybe one of the, from our side, this is maybe one of the biggest damages, I would say, which of course it's related to the financial aspect, but it's just a bit more different. It's, just you're having to tell your employees, I don't have money to pay you anymore. I don't know what to do. And the employee to be like, okay, and now like, should I just go somewhere else and look for another job? And very important to mention the area. So the factory of Plush Bio, who by the way was built on GMP pharmaceutical standards, is in a rural area. It's close to a city, but it's in a rural area of Romania. I don't know if you have ever been to Romania or if any of you have been to the countryside in Romania, but there is really not that many places to work at. It's just like maybe the shop, the Whole Food store or something like that, and that's it. So I think that's also the damage that was not seen, and that, just you think, oh, it's only about the business owner. No, it's not only about the business owner. The business owner is only the one that has to carry this weight every day, and just that finds the courage to wake up again every day and, facing these problems and just trying to do something to get out of it. But as you were saying, and I think that would be, if or maybe if the fact checkers were online back then, I don't know if they were, this thing with the fact checkers was already back then implemented, but no one replied. We were reporting the accounts, everything. No one replied, literally no one. So as you were saying, yes, everyone can say everything online. Yes, and nothing can happen. And it's not only the financial, it's the human aspects of these things that are not visible, are not on the front row.
Yes. Facebook now has a sort of online media console where you can bring your case. So it has changed a lot. There were a lot of troubles with Facebook on this field, but now they have a sort of social media console, and maybe we should bring your case in front of this social media console, so Facebook knows actually what happens, because sometimes the data authority, the Irish data authority, they don't give it to the Facebook. Sometimes the email addresses don't work. You cannot reach Facebook by email. It's not possible to reach them by email. So there are some instruments that you can use, and there is also a data privacy commission also in your country, in Romania. So I think if we could work together, and I want to work together with you to put this on the agenda, then we can give this to the social media council of Meta, and they will certainly give a look to it. And I think you can. This can be an instrument for change, also for social media. So I'm very unhappy for what happened, but I think there are still possibilities to talk about this and to make this public. I'm very happy that you have done your story about this, and I know Romania a bit. I know how difficult it is in places where there are not a lot of companies, and to survive there, people have 3-4 jobs sometimes to survive. There's also a lot of corruption there in Romania. It's not always easy for people. So I know the atmosphere there. Also very religious people also there. So I know it's not an easy spot to do business. So, but I hope if we can help you with this, we will take your story to the Facebook Council, and also to the Romanian authorities. But there is also European private authority that is busy with this privacy and looking into this case. So I think there's a very good example of how reputation can be damaged online. So we are really unsatisfied about this, but we will try to help you, and we know the channels to do it.
Jimmy, I don't want to butt in, but I do want to just pick up on that very briefly. The fact is, if you write something in a newspaper and it's libelous, it's not true, or it's in some way deliberately running somebody down, then the person affected has an automatic right to damages from the newspaper and the journalist concerned. Now, somehow or other, this simplistic little bit of legal advice has got lost in this huge chaos of social media. And I come back, I think Andy Vermouth's point is extremely good, but I think the simplistic thing is for governments and to basically introduce, if you run a social media platform, you are the first principal liability that somebody will sue you and get compensation from you. That's it. I think you could actually do that in Romania. By the way, my daughter-in-law is Romanian, and my son is moving to Romania in June.
Oh, we're waiting you. You should come and visit.
Okay, I will do. Don't worry.
Just to add one little thing here. I'm listening and thinking about this story. This is not just a Romanian problem; it's a European problem, of course. Yes. I would like. It's not just a Plush Bio story either. It's a much wider issue, and I'm glad that it's here at the press club. Just to make a point here, this is the largest press club in Europe, by the way. We have the European Council across the road, European Commission just behind me, European Parliament 5 minutes walk away. This is the place where such issues should be raised. And this is something that I would certainly like to follow up, because when we talk about abuse of social media, when we talk about libel, about slander, obviously this concerns me because I have to watch it every day. If anybody ever complains about anything that I've written, even if I know that I'm right, my first reaction is take it down instantly. On social media, it can't just be taken down instantly. It's got to go through a process. As Andy said, who do you contact? Who do you, we need to start to build in safeguards. We need to make people legally responsible for what they write. It's difficult because, the millions, if not billions of people using social media. I do believe, I have to say, that the social media companies, the platforms are addressing this, but they need to be pushed. We need some legislation there, and we need protection so that stories such as that we've just heard can't happen, and that somebody who has invested $1.5 million of her own money into a company doesn't then suddenly find she's gone bankrupt because of some fake social media accounts spreading false stories. This must not happen. This mustn't happen.
And when we write something wrong, we in Belgium, we have the right to answer, recht van antwoord, droit de réponse, and people can respond, and the newspaper is obliged to publish it. So this should also be the case in your thing, because they were removing all the good critics. Everything who was good was removed. So this should be also a right, that you have the right to, your answer is there. And that's a problem, that people can remove it easily.
But I think this happens because, nowadays, and I think this is because of social media. And I'm someone who kind of like grew up with social media, if you want. I think it's because of that, because you just, it's very hard, you can't, now my friends cannot agree with the fact that we do not agree between us. So this is something that I have noticed. So it's only someone's opinion, and it's only that is the truth, and no one else is the truth. Everyone else is saying a lie. It's only my opinion, and it should be only my opinion there. And that's what happened. That's how everything was done. And I think it was also the use of the Cartman drama triangle with the, like the aggressor, the savior, and the victim. So basically the person, like the moderator, was like this savior, as I was saying when we started. So, people just, they just can't agree with the fact that, maybe it's not true, or like maybe we should investigate it or look at it. I think this is the problem of our generation, if you want.
Okay, on that note, unless anybody has anything to add, Chris?
Well, I must say I agree with what that lady just said. I'm sorry, I've forgotten her Christian name. First name, I beg your pardon.
He forgets my name sometimes, and we've known each other 20 years.
Well, and I think Gary, as you know, I feel very strongly. I feel very strongly about social media, and I do feel even more strongly that the law needs to be applied properly. And I think if we looked into it really deeply, the problem that we've been discussing in Romania might actually be a problem that could be resolved by proper application of the law. The simplistic explanation is, if you publish something in a newspaper, that newspaper is liable for any damages. And I think that's somewhere that, that would force the platforms and everybody else to pay attention.
Radu, anything to add?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, Andy?
Yes, when I conclude everything, I think we need a sort of European legislator, a digital fundamental rights chapter, a sort of charter who is made with legal rights for people who attacked under fake news, that they have the rights to have a response, and if there is no right to response, that there can be done legally something. But the problem is that we now have big companies deciding on this. So we need accountability from the companies, but we also need accountability of the users, because they cannot, we have more than 5 billion social media accounts already. So it's not an easy thing to monitor all these media accounts. And also the algorithm, when there's a lot of reactions, the algorithm makes more reactions possible. So if one reacts, if you have 3-4 people sitting together and you form a bond and you report every day the same guy, even if he is saying the truth, you will be banned. If you report with 4 people every day, you do it every time. And that's also a problem that social media companies have to work on. There is the response of Gary, that we need a sort of digital idea. Next to that, our former reporter also, who has the idea of the media companies being responsible themselves. But how do you monitor 5 billion accounts on Facebook? It's not so easy to do. So I think there is a common responsibility of the users also. You cannot only say it's the responsibility of the Facebook, of Twitter themselves. It's also the responsibility of the people who do who somebody used the weapon, the one who pulls the trigger. So I think this is the main issue for me.
Chris?
Gary, can I I'm going to finish on this. Can I just say to you, there's a saying, a common saying that used to be used very frequently in England, and that is, if you say that about me, I'll see you in court.
Okay, I'll just finish off by saying that, as I generally do after an event like this, I will drop a note to the European Commission asking for comments. If those comments come, it can take some time. But if we do get a response, I will pass them on to everybody here. And I think we'll all be very interested to see what they have to say. I'm sure the Commissioner are aware of this, but getting them to move is an art form, shall we say. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you very much to Leo for technical support, making all this happen, making sure nothing goes wrong, despite my technical ineptitude. It's been a great pleasure speaking to everybody. It's been a very important issue. Thank you very much. And I look forward to speaking with everybody again real soon.
Thank you very much for your time and for raising awareness. Thank you.